Hello and welcome. My name is Father William Maestri, and this is Overfed and Undernourished. Several decades ago, a futurologist by the name of Alvin Toffler wrote a book that made quite a splash, not only in the United States, but really around the world. The title of the book was Future Shock. And he followed that book up rather quickly with a second book called The Third Wave. And the thesis of Toffler was this, that what is unique about the modern world, especially the world of technology and the world of developing technology, this is back in the 70s, is the rate at which change takes place. Change is going at like speed, but our ability to adapt and to process that change has not kept pace with the technological advances in so many areas of life. And of special interest to Toffler was the idea of the development of cultural mores and values, ways in which we live, the things we value, the way in which we interact with one another, the way in which culture is formed. Because culture is really formed over generations, which takes time to settle. It takes experience for people to think about, reflect, and incorporate them into their daily lives. And Toffler's thesis was, with the rapidity of change today, it's very difficult for culture to become settled, especially our fundamental mores, values, our ethics, our way of living. And he said that time, again today, is something that has really shrunk compared to the speed of change. So I thought in this final presentation of our three-part series, it would be good to review maybe some, if you wish, themes, or what I would prefer to call our guidepost, not hitching post, but guidepost, because life moves and so do we. And these will no doubt be familiar to you, but I think they're important to recollect and to incorporate more and more into our daily life, where indeed change is indeed so rapid. The first of these signposts is the fundamental dignity of all human persons. Each person is made in the image and likeness of God and filled with the very life breath of God. Each and every person, from the moment of conception to the point of natural death, is deserving of respect, is deserving of reverence and honor, not because the person is attractive, not because the person is intelligent or strong or has social status or money, but simply because the person is. Each and every human being is unique and is a gift to the world and has something to contribute in some way to make our lives better and to enrich us. And so much of today is, let's face it, under the grip of what we might call the culture of death. That is, life seems to be, in many instances, a kind of throwaway material that we kind of use and then discard. But first and foremost, human life is sacred in all of its forms. Secondly, the human person is by nature social. We're meant to be with and for others, which brings up the importance of the family and the importance of human relationships. In an age of technology and of digital devices that we have, it's very easy to become disconnected, to become isolated, in which our best friend is our cell phone or our computer or the game that we play. But there is really no substitute for that face-to-face interaction, especially beginning in the home. So I think it's important for us to once again reconnect and to reappreciate those fundamental relationships that really help us to develop our humanity to its full potential. Thirdly, because we live in community and because we are made in the image and likeness of God, it is important that we deal with one another in truth. Every human person seeks the truth. We want to be told the truth, and we would like to think that we speak the truth. Truth is necessary for trust. Without truth, the bonds that hold us together are weak at best and non-existent. If we went through a day without the ability to believe that those who are speaking to us, the more important the issue, or the more it touches us, the greater is the need for truth, then we would begin to become highly suspicious, lacking in trust, of course, and we could never form any kind of lasting bonds. Life would really be chaotic. But it also goes against our nature. By nature, we desire truth, and we want to speak the truth. Fourthly, the fourth signpost is that of freedom. If we don't walk in the truth and live in the truth, we really are not free. Freedom can never be predicated or built upon a lie, either a social or cultural lie, or the individual lies we may tell others, or lies that indeed we try to tell ourselves. Freedom is guided by truth. If we are guided by falsity, if we're guided by that, and we don't live in the truth, those very bonds of trust that are essential for our development and for our growth simply, again, disintegrate and fall apart. We have a great deal of freedom today, great deal of freedom, number of options and choices before us. Technology has expanded that kind of freedom of choice, that freedom of options, which means more and more we have to make prudent, wise decisions, always grounded in truth. Fifthly, we hear a great deal of talk today about social justice. And that is an important topic. And certainly, technology today, we refer to it as social media. But social justice, what is justice? If we take the root meaning of justice, it means to render to him or her that which is due them, that which is owed them as a person, in truth and in honesty. Therefore, when we use our devices, when we engage in something that is not true, we deal in rumor, we deal in things that are hearsay, or things that we know are simply not true, we are taking away from that person that is something due them, fundamental to them. We may take away their good name, their reputation, and we never know where that damage will end or how it will affect that other person. We hear a great deal about that today, but it is a serious wound on what is due that particular person. So we have to be very careful, very prudent about how we speak what we believe to be true. To whom do we speak it? Does that person have a right to that truth? We may know something to be true about someone, but it doesn't mean that we ought to then begin to broadcast it or to make it widely known. There may be proper people who need to know a certain truth because the person is a danger to themselves or others. But social justice also involves media justice. And media justice is the justice that renders to that person the fundamental right to their good name. Sixthly, authority. Authority figures play very prominently in today's digital age, beginning, of course, with parents and with the family. We have to be able to discuss and to openly talk about things that we see and hear, things that come to us over the internet, and those conversations should begin in the home. Mother and father should be our primary authority figures, that we have these honest discussions and honest ability to say what we think, even when we make mistakes. Remember, it's not so much important what we do, it's what we do after what we do. And the way in which that's processed within the family is very important for growing and for moving on. The second location is, of course, the school. That's very important because of the tremendous influence that teachers have. We never know, as teachers, where our influence begins and where it will end. And teachers occupy a special trust, a special place in the life, especially of the adolescent and the young child, in terms of their formation and in terms of their growing, the kind of values, the kind of skills that they learn, the way in which they interact with others, and the way in which they handle difficult and even complex situations. And some of the best moments for really teaching and mentoring and guiding is not necessarily in the formal setting of the classroom. It is in the extracurricular activities, coaching, extracurricular clubs, various activities that consume a person outside the academic setting of the classroom. But it opens up a whole vista, a whole avenue of ways in which authority can interact. And to be an authority figure means to be authoritative, not authoritarian. That is, an authoritative person is a person who has the best interest of that student at heart, who really comes to that student with a certain degree of experience and wisdom, and is willing to share that with that student, person to person. And of course, those who very much may turn to their clergy, to their parish, to their religious figure, the synagogue, or to their assembly of worship, to get spiritual direction. It's very important that we always nourish the soul and nourish the spirit and foster that relationship that we have with Almighty God, given that we began with the idea that we're made in the image and likeness of God, and the importance of keeping that conversation and contact going. Seventhly is that we can never formulate rules and regulations, laws. I don't care how many laws we have, how wise they are, how pervasive they are. We can't develop laws so great and so influential and so controlling that we are not personally responsible for the decisions that we make. Every person who picks up a cell phone, every person who manages a computer, there's an enormous amount of power in your hands, And when in doubt, should I send this? Should I text this to someone? And if you're in doubt, it's good to delay the response. It's good to give yourself time to prudently reflect and to consider. Wait a day. Things may look very differently in a few hours or maybe tomorrow. So we don't want to just impulse send, impulse respond. It's very important that we take that kind of time. And lastly, I would suggest that we take an inventory, if you want to call it that, a personal inventory of how we spend one of the most precious gifts we have, the gift of our time. Because it's finite, it's limited. Our time on earth is limited. How long, we have no idea, but it is limited, that we know. And it's very precious where we spend it. Do we try to enjoy various experiences and integrate those into our life? Not simply with a computer or a digital device, not on the cell phone or playing various video games, but also reading and writing, interacting with those significant others, beginning with the family and our close friends and relatives, and also the ability to develop those social skills that allow us to branch out, as we say, to go into the larger social world, where we will have to go. As one person once said, I resent those who run down the future because that's where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. Well, that's very true. And so we want to be a part of that, for that which is good, and bring as much of ourself as we can to that. Now, at this particular point, I imagine there are some of you who might be saying, Well, I know all of that. I've heard all of that. I understand all of that. This is kind of just going over basic 101. And that's true. It is foundational. It is fundamental to the kind of person that we become. But it's not in the knowing. The challenge is in the willing. Do we have the commitment? Do we make that option for the priorities in our life? Yes, we know something, but that knowledge does not necessarily translate into action. If I know I'm spending too much time on the computer, for example, well, what am I going to do to correct that? I'm not talking about getting rid of the computer, turning it down forever, and all of this sort of stuff, but how do I better budget and manage that precious gift of time to make room for such things as contemplation, reflection, more social interaction, more reading, more prayer, more study, in order to expand those other areas of my life. So hopefully in this kind of fundamental or reflective presentation, really on the signpost going forward, it is true that the future is now. And if not now, we would probably like it to be yesterday, but it is in front of us. And what we can do with this future, which is highly complex, highly demanding, and highly changing, is that we can rage against the dying of the light. We can put our fist up and dare not to be a part of tomorrow. We can do that, and some people do. But I would prefer to take another option. The option that is beautifully presented in the old Protestant hymn, Because He Lives. And so as not to really drive you off, I'm not going to sing the verse, but the words are very important. Because He lives, we can face tomorrow. Because He lives, all fear is gone. And I know He holds the future. And life is worth the living because our Savior lives.